This is our standing regular meeting of the Housing Committee of January 3rd, 2024. I'd like to welcome everybody. Happy New Year. This meeting, I will be chairing tonight's meeting with Kathy Hunter, and tonight we are joined by James Graham, Elaine Feldman, Jamie Rude, Louis Schaefer, and Mary Dean. And just for the record, Jamie is part of the Scrod consultancy that's helping us out with community conversations. So that's why he is here, and we will be piping in Ben Fink when we get to that part in our agenda.
And just a small clarification, I'm actually a team consultant, and Ben Scrogg, and I'm here
Right.
in guest capacity, I guess.
Yeah, but you're part of helping us out with the...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So with that, I'd like to move to the first item on our agenda, which is approval of minutes for December 6, 2023. Do we have a chance to read through those minutes?
Yeah.
Are we okay with them?
Let's see, do we have any questions?
We will,
Oh.
I will make the adjustment to add the excuse.
Yes. Okay. So can I have a motion to approve?
Second, first.
You got that?
Hey, I'm gonna put you on speaker. We just started.
Is that Ben?
Yeah, Ben, just know that you're not... You're,
Oh, wait, did we vote?
no.
There you go.
You're not gonna be on until later on the agenda, if that's okay. We have some other agenda items.
That's totally fine, yep, and I'm in a conference in Stephanie from Scrog, so we'll both be here, this way, but yeah, whenever is fine.
Okay, terrific. All right, we have a vote to approve the minutes? All in favor?
I don't know whether I should vote or not since I wasn't here.
All right, minutes approved. All right, our second item on the agenda is public comment. I get the suspicion we have some public comment tonight?
Can I go?
Absolutely. Yes, so we're gonna start a public, we're gonna open our public comment, and if you could just keep your comments to, brief, 3 minutes, that'd be appreciated, because we have some items on this agenda tonight.
That's okay. Well, my name is Sue, as you all know by now. My first comment is you could probably hear me well because I have a cold and I have a tendency to talk loud, which means I can't hear really well.
Okay.
So I was wondering if there's a way you could put on the mics so we can hear. I'm still having a little bit of difficulty unless you look straight at us to hear everything you're saying.
To put you on the mic?
I don't even know.
No, I think
Sorry,
she
not her mic.
wants to
Our
have
mic.
us use
Oh,
the microphones.
I don't know.
I don't even know how, can you hear? I don't even know how to work it.
Oh, we on? We are on.
They're on now?
Yes.
Yeah,
I have
Yes.
no
they look
idea.
like they are.
Or just kind of.
It is on.
Maybe
Yeah,
not.
no.
Yeah, maybe, I could speak actually. Yeah, I'm on the mic now, okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, there was no other call coming in.
Okay, my other comment is I'm very interested in the ADUs. I have a lot of questions, specific questions about them, what the criteria are for them, what the, requirements are, like, for instance, what's a real legal kitchen in an ADU, egress, all that kind of stuff. Because I was reading on desegregateconnecticut.org, they're doing a webinar, which I'm going to
Yeah.
be a part of on
Good.
January 11th. So I'm going to learn a little bit about it. But I was wondering if you ever have the zoning board or somebody from zoning who might have more information about them. Do you ever have them join your meetings so that we can get a 2-for-1?
Yeah, actually, they do have a 2-for-1 because I am on the planning and zoning board. And actually, that was my first motion I made when I came on the board, was to align the ADU regulations with the state's new regulations when they passed, was it Act 21-28, that changed the regulations for the ADUs. So we have opened up the regulations for that. You know, it's interesting that you say that, because there is a problem with our regulations, in that our current planning and zoning regulations aren't on the website, because we're going through the process of reformatting those regulations. So even though we did amend the ADU regulations, if somebody was like, if you went to look on the website, you would not find it. And I, in fact, brought that up last night, that we need to put this information on there so people know that this is actually, you know, it's permissible. We changed it. It doesn't have to be a family relationship anymore. We expanded the size to 1,000 square feet. And there's other, if you look at the state regulations for ADUs, and you would find that in Desegregate Connecticut, it's now aligned with those regulations.
Because I'm still not really sure what those are, even through Desegregate. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, they have a really good write-up. Desegregate Connecticut has a very, very good website, and they do have the AD regulations on there. Yeah.
Maybe I'll learn more when I go to the webinar.
Oh, yeah.
The other
If I could just interrupt for 1 second, I know everybody in this room knows what an ADU is, but I imagine that there might be somebody watching this on TV, at least we're paying for having it filmed, and why don't we just state that that's an accessory dwelling unit? All right, and any future ones, at least we say it
Yeah,
once.
good idea.
Now, last time I had asked about minutes, because they're not showing up, and you said they have to be approved, but
Right.
for 2 months, they have not been
There's-
on the website, and you said you had to have a quorum in order to approve them, but yet every meeting you have a vote.
No, they should be on there, because
There's a little leaf or something that says, minutes, and you'll know that the minutes are posted, because it'll show up there. It's only the agenda that shows up.
Huh,
but for the
that's-
previous, like, if you look at the previous,
Yeah,
really?
So,
I know.
yeah.
All right,
that's
that's,
strange, but yeah, definitely.
yeah. Well, I
We're
mean, there's
looking-
been some transition, so I will talk to
Yeah, I brought
Allison.
that up last month, it's still the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'll make sure, because it's important for us that we have the minutes up there.
And one more thing, and then I'm done. The only other thing is I wish you really would put postings in the local newspaper. Sustainability Committee did it, and it was just so wonderful to see what they're looking at, what they're doing, what's coming up for events. I think that's something you should post.
Posting in terms of the stuff we're working on?
You're
Yeah, no, in fact, that's on my agenda when we start talking about next steps. You're absolutely correct. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good suggestions, thank
Great,
you.
thank you. Hi.
Hi.
My name's Kathy Wick, 181 Raymond Road. Amy and I have some joint comments that we, similar to following up on the presentation we made last September. So a few months ago, at the September 2023 Housing Committee meeting, Amy and I presented detailed comments on the town's housing plan, including the identification of factual errors, misstatements, and erroneous conclusions that resulted from reliance on outdated and generic data. In the 4 months since, we've seen no effort by the committee to address any of the substantive problems we identified in the report. Instead, recent posts on Facebook by a committee member actually repeated errors that we had identified. The committee's follow-up response to our comments focused on expressing disappointment that we did not offer, quote, new suggestions for addressing the problem. While we do recall offering suggestions in our oral presentation to the committee, we're here to make sure that our suggestions are clear to the committee and to interested residents. To make these suggestions, however, we do need to first address the committee's current approach. To begin, the Housing Committee's discussion of housing is inappropriately siloed, meaning housing is being discussed simplistically in isolation from other state policy and from the potential impact said housing will have on the town as a whole. Instead, this committee should be discussing housing as it fits in with other equally important state policies, such as the Green Plan, smart growth, transit-oriented development, watershed protection, and sewer avoidance. Housing, land conservation, and the protection of clean water are not mutually exclusive. Housing goals can and should be accomplished without sacrificing public open space land or endangering public water supply watershed. In addition, the Housing Committee must acknowledge that when it comes to school enrollment, Woodbridge is not average, it is extreme. It is one of the only towns, if not the only town in Connecticut, that continues to experience substantial growth in its school population as existing housing stock changes hands. The Woodbridge Board of Education completed a thorough study last year predicting a 15% increase in our school enrollment over the next 8 years, assuming no change in the number of housing units in the town. In the first year since the study, the actual enrollment increase of 30 students was double the prediction. Yet the Housing Committee continues to rely on outdated, pre-COVID state averages of student enrollment while ignoring the actual data generated by our own Board of Education. The Housing Committee loses credibility when it promotes predictions that contradict known reality. The Housing Committee also seems to be placing far too much emphasis on private development that includes some small element of affordable housing. Given the housing market reality in Woodbridge, the Housing Committee should be focused on ways to increase affordable housing without increasing the amount of market rate housing in the town. This is the most direct way to increase the ratio of affordable to market rate housing. The committee also needs to understand, through a build-out analysis, what is the currently existing housing opportunity in Woodbridge as allowed under the new zoning regulations enacted in the summer of 2021. This relates to what Sue was talking about. As a reminder, those regulations include ADUs are permitted by right in every zone, duplexes are permitted by right everywhere except in the public water supply watershed, which safeguards drinking water for New Haven area customers. Duplexes are permitted in the watershed with TPZ commission review, and multifamily housing of up to 15 units per acre is permitted in every zone if the parcel has public sewer and water. Dominic Thomas, the original chair of the Housing Opportunity Study Committee, praised these changes to zoning, saying they make Woodbridge a leader in the state. Working within these zoning changes, the Housing Committee has ample opportunity to encourage private property owners, such as Sue, to increase the percentage of legally affordable housing within the town. Now, Amy is going to cover 4 specific suggestions we have on how the committee can work to increase housing affordability.
Thank you, Kathy. Amy Morella, 184 Ribbon Road. So here are 4 suggestions. The first, very timely, is to do more to promote accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. The committee should undertake an effort to educate the public. Ways to do this include articles in the local paper, information via email newsletter, and workshops for realtors and for members of the public. Recently, we were shocked to hear from a prominent local realtor that she was unaware that ADUs are legal in our town, and that's a realtor. So clearly you have an information gap that needs to be addressed. Yeah, people did not know. So
Nobody knows.
the state of
I
California
believe that.
has experienced a nearly 20-fold increase in ADUs in the last 7 years since it began promoting their use. Any number of Woodbridge residents, not just Sue, might be interested in constructing an ADU for a variety of reasons. Out of a commitment to legally affordable housing, as a means to expand the feasibility of child care or elder care assistance, or as an opportunity for someone they care about at whatever age. Or they might just want to increase their own net worth, because according to Desegregate Connecticut, just mentioned earlier, a housing advocacy group that promotes the construction of accessory apartments, ADUs can boost property value by as much as 50%. So we think this is a key area that you all really need to focus on. It's 100% each unit is value increased in terms of our amount of housing. It's not having to deal with a private developer where you've got to give them 90% non-affordable housing in order to get your 10%, and you're really not changing the needle very much as for our community as a whole. Another idea is an incentive program for specifically qualified elderly. The committee, like the state, is too focused, we believe, on new construction as a way to create affordability, and is too focused on bringing new residents into town. We have many current town residents who are burdened by housing costs, particularly our elderly who may be in danger of losing their homes. These residents should be a top priority of the committee, but they are being ignored. We suggest that qualified elders, for a start, be offered a tax incentive in exchange for deed restricting their homes as affordable. A bill proposed in the last legislative session in Hartford, HB 37, which we summarize in our written comments, which you will receive, proposed such a program. And it did not end up passing, but it can serve as a model if towns want to implement such a program. The list of seniors who might be interested is readily available because there's an existing taxation program, or at least there was when I was first selectman, I assume it still is going on, that allows deferral of tax payments for qualified seniors. Another idea is infill development in the business district. The committee should analyze the opportunity to make specific suggestions for zoning changes that could allow more density in our business district. For example, expanding the areas where residential units can be built above retail establishments. Focus on this area is warranted because that's the area that enjoys, of our town that enjoys access to public water and public sewer service. And lastly, for this evening, our final suggestion is to focus on state-owned land. The state owns several parcels totaling about 50 acres on Litchfield Turnpike, which either contain or are very close to sewer and water infrastructure. We listed the parcel numbers in our testimony and the size of the acreage. Anecdotally, one person that we know mentioned that there actually had been construction on this site before, so it's not as if this is all pristine land. Much of it may be, but even if you've just got a couple of units there, there's another opportunity for you to explore. So the committee should reach out to state representatives to explore the feasibility of state-sponsored construction of real affordable housing on one or more of these parcels.
Thank you.
So I have a written copy of the comments, and I ask that they be appended to the minutes and added to the record.
Yep.
And if you'd like, I can send you an electronic copy of
That would be great.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Any comments tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Want to comment?
No.
No.
Okay, with that,
But thank you.
is there anybody else here for a public comment? I should say that. No one's hiding under the table. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna close out the public comment item, and I am going to move to my housing share report. And perhaps I might address some of the comments that were made. So I did want to report, can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, now Sue, are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Just as
Sue,
a,
if it's better, you could come up here.
Oh, you're in the mic. I can hear you, you're in the mic. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, if you wanted to move closer in,
For some reason, I can hear, I think it's.
yeah, well, no, I'm talking, I'm projecting into the mic, okay. So I did want to do this might end up being another standing item on the agenda, but there is a lot of things that do go on between meetings, so I feel like, I should be reporting on the work that's going on. So I just wanted to follow up in pursuit of our getting planning capacity. And it's just interesting because a lot of the issues that were addressed that some folks feel that we're not working on, we actually are working on. So we're trying to get planning capacity to actually get the text zoning amendments created so we could actually implement some of these suggestions, because some of the areas in like the business districts, you have to actually amend the zoning in order to allow mixed use type of housing. So that's you can't just make it happen. You have to actually change the zoning in order to make it happen. So there is a long process. But we are, I can assure you, this committee works really hard, and we are working on it. But I did want to report that the first selectman and I did meet with SCROG, and we did discuss with them assistance they could provide us for helping us pursue grant opportunities to apply for planning. Because planning is the key. We need to get planning capacity to help us get these different initiatives going, particularly the ones that were even mentioned tonight. And so one of the funding sources we talked about was a small city CDBG application. That will probably be coming out sometime in January. So we're looking to put in an application for that, and so you have to do an RFP, and then once you get the RFP, you have to request for proposal.
Request for-
Yeah. I'm
So
sorry.
this was interesting in the minutes. So there's nobody currently in Woodbridge? There's no staff person certified for that?
There is, right, so that's another thing I need to discuss with the first selectman. The Department of Housing has gotten a little strict. They want a town employee to be certified in small cities, CDBG administration. So you have to actually go through a whole course.
Yeah.
I was certified, and I realized that my certification expired in November, so I
Oh,
have
no.
to get recertified, but they're not certifying until next fall, so I'm trying to get a little waiver on that. But, I mean, I wouldn't be writing the town's CDBG application, but they would go out and they would procure somebody to do that who is certified in CDBG. And then there was another, outside of the CDBG funding, there's also an initiative that Department of Housing is doing. They're actually dedicating, we found out that they're actually dedicating a point person at Department of Housing, realizing how crucial the issue is of getting capacity, planning capacity for small towns. So it's not like the small towns just don't want to do housing, it's just that they need the capacity to help us execute the affordable housing plan. So that was all good news. I also, a couple weeks ago, I had a meeting with Sean Gio. Sean Gio is the policy director at the Partnerships for Strong Communities. He's a gentleman that came and spoke with us in last March on how to promote affordable housing. And again, I was talking to him about planning capacity and how we needed help with writing zone text amendments, and he suggested that I should connect with Attorney Dwight Merriam, which was interesting because when I connected with him, he responded right away and talking about how he had an engaging conversation with Mary Dean at a holiday party the night before. And I said, wow, it's a small world.
It's a small world. Yes, I know him also.
Yeah, so it's it was interesting. Oh, do you know Tony?
I know him also. No, I was just
Oh,
saying.
okay, yeah. So he's
Ian.
he's interesting. I mean, he's been around for a long time, representing landowners and developers, and he was a past president of the American Institute for Certified Planners, former director of the American Planning Association, and like he's the one that writes the textbooks. When you go to law school for planning and zoning, he's the one that actually authors the textbooks. So he would be a really good person to have to help us out. So I just try to get a feel to him, because again, we are trying to get dollars in to do this. But he did do something in a town in Connecticut Pomfret, where he did help a town. I think he did it, pro bono. So I was trying to see whether or not he could help us out a little bit. And then he started talking about well, maybe we could do a presentation, because he has some colleagues that he could bring to the table from New Jersey that were very involved in the Mount Laurel case. And so he gave me a couple names of some Jersey boys, Cray Rackenkamp and Judge Birschbaum. And they're also interested in like having a conversation. I'm not sure how this is gonna look, but at least, we're networking. And so I thought Craig Rackham comes, I looked him up on LinkedIn. He talks about providing solutions for land use problems, conflicts, and puzzles for landowners and others in the private sector doing their best to meet market needs and provide value in the face of archaic or self-interested regulations. So
Okay.
I thought that was interesting. And then Judge Bushbaum, I think he was involved in carrying out the aftermath of Mount Laurel. So, I'm not sure, we're still talking. I'm not sure what this is going to look like. It could be something where they come and talk to us, maybe talk to us and planning and zoning, or have a working session or have a public session where people can listen. I'm not sure, but we have some interesting expertise at our disposal, possibly.
Maybe the SCROG would be interested in sponsoring the presentation for everybody in the region.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, that's an idea. So,
Speaker.
it's just we're making some inroads, I think. And then I just also wanted to report, because we have our plan of conservation and development coming up. And this is me wearing my planning and zoning hat. The plan of it's POCD, Plan of Conservation and Development, has to be updated every 10 years. And so our next POCD needs to be updated by May 2025. So we're kind of behind in getting this out. So I did provide planning and zoning some RFPs from other towns, one being the town of Kent, because that was one town in particular that the Task Force 2030 was interested in when they were looking at some ideas for the how to do the downtown area. And so I think we're going to be going with that format for RFP for the POCD, but I did volunteer to write kind of the prelude to the RFP, because there's just a lot of initiatives that would go into the POCD, particularly our affordable housing plan. But there's other initiatives that other commissions are working on, and we are actually working in, contrary to some of the comments, we are really working with the Conservation Committee. As I said before, Tim Austin is going to be doing a presentation here next month on the Greenway, and the idea is how we could work together, how affordable housing and land use is complementary, and how when they're planning their Greenway, that we make sure it complements both efforts of having the Greenway to be in concert with housing. And there's other, the task force, particularly Task Force 2030, that has to be factored into the POCD, and CUPOP in their effort to make decisions on town-owned property. That needs to be part of the planning process for POCD. And we have a new sustainability committee as well, as was mentioned. And housing is all part of that. So I'm going to, when I do the prelude to the suggested prelude to the POCD, I'm going to be incorporating all these different initiatives. And what else do I have? The person I had talked about being on the committee, like back in May and June, Warner Marshall. I think that he probably will be able to join us in February. It's been a long process, but he's in the process of being vetted out, and I think we'll probably have a new person. It looks like we have 2 vacancies. I wasn't sure whether or not there was like a set number of committee members on this committee, but he's going to be filling one of the vacancies.
What do you mean by vetted out? I know what the term means, but what does that entail?
It was a process. The administration, Warner
yeah.
Marshall, with the person I had nominated back in,
No, but who does the vetting?
they have a nomination committee.
They is who?
Is the deal?
I don't, is it
Okay.
administration or,
Where's the,
I think it's part of the Board of Selectmen.
I think it is.
Yes, so there's a nominating committee as part of the Board of Selectmen. And they do that vetting process. And
They must have low standards since we're on the committee.
oh, come on.
Sorry. You didn't hear that, Sue.
But we used to have 12 people, didn't we, or
We
11?
had,
or
12 people.
That was the old committee.
That was the other,
Before
right, that was.
the
that was-
original, to write the plan.
Right, we were the Housing Opportunity Study Committee that was charged with submitting a plan for June 1st, 2022. And then we, once that was accomplished, we got reconstituted in September to be the Housing Committee.
Okay.
And then that, hey Ben, can you put yourself on mute? I could hear everything you're doing.
Sounds like you scratched
With it.
off.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Yeah, and so as I mentioned, at the planning and zoning last night, I did bring up, similar issues of the fact that people aren't aware of that we have changed our regulations, and I heard that tonight, and it's just interesting that I just so happened to bring that up last night, that we need to put a link on the Planning and Zoning Commission website for housing opportunity regulations, because that you will never find it if you
and
want to look for it.
that was passed a long time
That
ago,
was
too,
passed,
so.
yeah, June 7th, 2021, and when I kept on bringing this up, they're like, well, we have to reformat our regulations before we can put them up, and that process has just taken too long. And so, in terms of communication, I have to agree with Amy and Kathy, and in fact, I was gonna suggest that we do some articles in the Woodbridge Town News to talk about the regulations and the changes. Because
Are we prevented from advertising these changes? Does it have to be,
no, we're not.
is
No.
there, no, so we can sort of,
Yeah, we
jump
just do
ahead.
an article and it's like, do you know that we could do, ADUs and, two-unit housing and multi-housing in areas that are serviced by water and sewer. So we could, I think, just reiterate what's out there.
just for my information, do I understand correctly that we always did, not always, I mean, not forever, but that we previously had an individual had the legal right to construct an ADU in their home.
Yes.
It's just that now the restrictions have been considerably relaxed. Is that not
Correct.
true? So,
Correct.
So it's been around, you're
so
saying
if
it's been
somebody
around.
didn't know you could do an ADU, do I have to push?
No, just move it closer to your
Oh,
system.
if someone who should know about ADUs didn't know about them, it wasn't because we didn't tell them. Because they should have known it 5 or 10 years ago now.
Oh, no, but they wouldn't know. They weren't, that was only for a family member. You had to have a family relationship. The big thing about the change in the ADUs is now that you don't have to have a family relationship, and that's a big change,
Yeah.
as
Oh, there have been
Milford, right?
others too.
So now you could rent this out to somebody, and it becomes a small A affordable housing opportunity, because they are more affordable than,
But just structurally, it's also been expanded quite a lot, because you can have an independent unit.
you could
doesn't
have
to
it
be part of the
detached,
house.
you could have
It
it
can be much
bigger.
bigger.
Yeah, no, it's.
Big differences, yeah.
Big
Big
differences,
differences,
yeah.
so
But
it is.
technically, you could have had an ADU before.
And before, were you able to rent them?
No,
Yeah, so-
before you had to have a family relationship, so that was the big change, you weren't able to rent an ADU.
That's really
So that makes it affordable for both parties. A young couple could buy a house at maybe they couldn't afford without the rental income, and someone who needs a studio apartment, affordable one, naturally affordable apartment, can move in. And, you know, it's a win-win, and we're trying to do education around that. I know I'm a little redundant with what I said at the last meeting, but I think we could start brainstorming with realtors so they think of that more as they're considering what houses to show folks, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Especially since they said a realtor wasn't aware of the ADU regulations, you know, that's something they should know, because that
course.
would provide value to the homes that they're selling. So maybe we should probably, you know, get something out to the realtors, to let folks know that, because that could change their approach for selling
I've had good
homes.
experience in other towns doing community conversations with realtors. They can be really interested, and you know, because their frustration at the lack of housing and their clients' frustration mirrors many others. So I think that's something you could actually pursue.
Yes, yes. Okay, we could talk more about that with community conversations. I just want to end with a couple dates to keep in mind. First, January 24th, the SCROG is hosting a, visiting different homeless shelters in the region. It's from 12:30 to 3. It, demonstrates the real devastating impact of not having enough housing in our area. So if anybody is interested in that, let me know. I'll send on the information. And also I sent on earlier from Desegregate Connecticut. They're doing a webinar on intersection of affordable housing and land use. So that is another interesting. Did you get that, Sue?
What was it from?
It's from Desegregate Connecticut.
Yeah, that's the January 11th?
No, this one is on February 7th. So they're doing something. It was in a different email. So, I know it's probably on their website, so you might want to check it. It's February 7th, and I did send that on to the Conservation Committee as well, to just, work together on this. And one thing I forgot to do is we have to amend our agenda, because I forgot to put the Housing Committee meeting schedule on for 2024, and we have to look at this and vote on this. So if it's okay, I'd like to make a motion to add on to our agenda the review and adoption of the Housing Committee meeting schedule for 2024.
I'm not sure if you have to amend the agenda. The number 5 on the agenda is next steps in creating affordable housing, and
I just want to add this
Okay.
number 6.
okay.
Have a second?
So, second thing.
Okay. Thank you. You gotta be formal sometimes.
We got to vote now.
I'm trying. All right, all in favor? I know, I always forget the
Aye.
voting part.
What about this meeting on February 1st? Connecticut and our neighbors,
Oh, okay.
comparing rental vouchers, strategies across states.
Yeah, I mean, that's another one if you're interested in. I mean, that, it's good, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, that could be another one to go to.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Actually, that's a good strategy to expand rental vouchers, because if you have, that also counts for our affordable housing count. It's not necessarily, building new affordable housing units, but if someone uses a voucher in Woodbridge, that counts as a unit.
Really?
Yep,
I didn't know that.
That's very interesting.
yep. If you have.
I didn't know that at all.
If you use a Section 8 voucher, that counts. That
Okay.
actually constitutes some of our numbers. We have about
Currently,
8 or 9
do we?
Section 8.
Section 8 vouchers.
So even though the dwelling isn't deeded for, deed restricted, it doesn't,
It doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
matter.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is finding, and this is the problem they have with Section 8 vouchers, that some people can't even use them because they can't find affordable housing units, so, you know. But that, you know, that is a strategy of increasing for those, and maybe that's another communication piece for realtors, for that do rentals, that if they, maybe we could do something where they get a little bonus of something to take section, well, no, I mean, you can't discriminate against Section 8, but if they do promote, you know, having Section 8 renters, then that would count towards the town's count.
Is that disabled people too? Are they Section 8?
You have to, there's some folks that are disabled that get Section 8. You know, you have to get on the waiting list for Section 8. It's like the golden ticket for housing. And there's certainly not enough Section 8 to go around for everybody that needs it. But yes, there are people who are disabled that do have Section 8.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I guess what I'm asking is, are people who are disabled or veterans that are disabled, do they have to go on Section 8 to get vouchers? Or are they under a different type of housing?
There's a whole slew of different housing programs. Veterans, they do have their own special Section 8 program, as in people with disabilities have their own Section 8 program. But you know, there's all specialized housing programs. But you know, but they could also just be on regular Section 8 as well. So with that, I know I talked a lot. Is there any questions on anything I talked about?
So this February
we
1st
haven't-
meeting should address the issue of rental
Yeah,
vouchers.
I mean, I didn't focus on that because
Yeah.
I was looking, but yes, that
Yeah.
February 1st one is also, if you could attend that, I think that's an in-person one, right? Is that the Lyceum?
Yes,
Yes.
it's a Lyceum.
it's in person, right?
The other one, the intersection of affordable housing and land use, is a little easier because it's a Zoom meeting, 1 hour. So it's a little bit more, I think, doable for people. But yeah, if you could make that one, that would be great.
Did we get a second for the motion? Or did we decide we didn't need a motion?
For-
Where was that? For the schedule,
Oh,
second the schedule.
We had a second, we didn't have a vote.
Who's the second?
Yeah, we did.
yeah, we did.
Did? Okay.
I thought we had.
Yeah,
a
we
vote.
did.
I just said, because I said,
I didn't vote. I'm fine with
You just
it.
don't
Who was
remember.
it?
That's all.
Did you second? Who seconded?
Jim
Yeah, I
second.
did.
Jim did,
Jim.
and I think we did vote.
Yes. Yes.
I do have a question about
Can't think.
the plan, back to, how long will could this process take? I mean, what do you think are the parameters to sending out an RFP for, the small cities community development?
Oh, that has to be done very quickly. You know, the technical assistance that SCRA could provide, they have on board a couple consultants that are like, you know, they're really good at RFP. They do
Yeah,
this stuff,
they-
done
yeah,
this stuff
okay.
for a long time, so they can knock out an RFP for a consultant. And if not, you know, I have plenty of RFPs because I respond to them.
Yeah.
So I have plenty of examples of that, but if they're willing to, you know, tailor something nice for Woodbridge, I'll take the help. So we need to probably get that out end of January at some point, because the RFP from the state will come out probably sometime in January, end of January, and it takes some time to put these applications together. If you know anything about HUD, small cities, CDBG, they just ask for a lot of stuff, and it's usually painful. but yeah, I think it'll be. I think that would be nice to have a nice chunk and change. Now, mind you, that won't come in until like probably sometime in August. By the time that's approved. But in the meantime, I am working on, you know, DOH is having another initiative for planning that could help us as well. So we're moving. I think we're moving in the right direction. But we could talk about more about that in next steps.
Okay.
So with that, we can move on to our next agenda item, which, Ben, is furthering community conversations. I did want to just report that we had a planned conversation with Tim Austin from the Conservation Committee, but he canceled on us. I did reach out to him to see if we could reschedule, and I haven't heard from him yet. So, Ben, I don't know if you have some time when you could make it for a conversation with. You might just want me to send some times when you are around.
And by the way, I'm glad you pointed that out, because one of the things that concerned me, or I disagreed with, two of the comments, Amy and Kathy, was they said we operate in a silo and don't check with others, and that's just further evidence
Oh,
that
God,
we don't
I just,
operate
you
in
know.
a silo at all. You could always find criticism,
I'm
but
having a little
make it
trouble hearing you,
realistic.
Lou.
Sorry?
I'm having a little
Can you
trouble
try-
hearing you.
What I was saying was that Kathy and Amy had mentioned that we operate in a silo and don't talk to other governmental units, and I found that quite surprising that they could say something like that when we met with the first selectman last week. Kathy just mentioned she's scheduling something with conservation, and we've met with other committees and we've had interactions with others. We're not the ultimate deciders in any event. That goes to others. We're just one part of it, but it's just not true that we operate in a silo here.
No, I mean, that's always been my goal, and it's, as a kind of just being like a little bit of a community organizer, just in the work I did for way too long. You have to engage everybody. It's stakeholder participation, and because you're going to fail if you don't, and so that is why, I make sure I report to planning and zoning. I make sure I rope them into everything we're doing, because that is so tight at the hip. Even the sustainability committee, before they were even formed, they're asking me, like who they thought we were the sustainability committee, and I'm like, no, there used to be a sustainability committee, and I gave them the whole spiel about when Betsy Yagla worked on Sustainable Connecticut, and because there's a whole plan you could do to get points and whatnot, of which housing and preventing homelessness is part of that whole effort. So I do like to rope them in at some point. And us working with Task Force 2030. I mean, we brought them to the table and we talked.
Just the minutes alone are
Yeah.
just filled with communications you've had with groups, all the groups, many
Yes.
groups. So
Just to mention that when they were talking today, when they were talking about siloing, they were specifically referring to, let me just look at that, here. We weren't, it's the point that they've made before about how we're not taking into consideration other state policies that are considered relevant to this, such as the sewer policy. What is that?
The
called?
sewer avoidance policy.
Sewer avoidance
Yeah,
policy,
which
that kind of thing.
that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was trying to get Gabe Baca from the New Haven Water Pollution Control
yeah.
Authority
Right.
to talk about sewer avoidance policy, how it's no longer relevant in the state, and it's no longer a policy. So, and when I spoke to Ginsburg, is it John Ginsburg? He's the member from Woodbridge that's on the committee. He's just like, there's so many technological advances that have been going on with sewer capacity that it's no longer relevant. Sewer avoidance was a thing back in, I don't know, it was 70s or 80s, when they projected a very large population growth. And sewer avoidance was more like they were concerned at the time of the issue of they wanted to make sure that they were maintaining their current sewer infrastructure, and they wanted to focus on that before they built out more sewers. So at that time, it was to avoid and to encourage towns to do like community septic systems, which is still not a bad thing. But sewer avoidance was just something that came in during that period of time that's no longer adhered to. So I'm surprised they brought it up because we did question that at some point, and anyway,
Well,
it's okay. But they brought up some other good points that
that's what they were talking
yeah,
about.
I mean,
when
I
they sent
agree
us
with
out.
everything. Most of the things they gave a suggestion, but this is a multifaceted approach. Yes, I agree. We have so many opportunities, but that has to be done in conjunction with other opportunities that we need to pursue, because we have a lot of housing to build. So with that, I think we're still on. Did we lose Ben?
Yes, you dropped.
Do you have him speaker?
Yeah. Say that again, Ben.
Say it again, Ben.
You're on speaker now, Ben. Can you hear us?
I thought he said he was trying to get Stephanie in.
Oh, yes, he was.
Maybe he's trying to call Stephanie. So, our next steps is, I'll try to get another date with Tim Austin. So, Mary, I don't know if did you have a chance to reach out to? I think we're going to talk to somebody
Yeah.
about the
Um,
new neighbor thing.
the new neighbor thing.
Was that new?
It was my neighbor. But her name is just slipped my head. Just
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
We
Yes.
can now.
Cool. Kathy, good if I talk?
Sure.
Or are we in the middle of something? I'm sorry.
We'll come back to
Go
that.
ahead.
You're
We'll
on.
come back to
Okay.
something. Go ahead.
Great. So in terms of Tim Austin, is it still the people who are interested in doing that meeting? It's Kathy and Mary and Elaine, is that right?
Yep.
Okay, I will send you some times tonight. Unfortunately, my January is full up. I'll be in town a bunch, but it's pretty full. But let me. I will send those to you. In terms of, I just wanted to underline something that you said, Kathy, which I think is really important, which is a lot of the technological solutions are there, right? Including the sewers. Like a lot, the holdup is there are people who don't understand what's possible and who misunderstand what's possible. And this is why, again, I think widening the number of people who are involved in the conversation is really critical, right? Because the way it is now, you have a small number of people who, as we know, have perspectives that are pretty fixed, and those are important. But the conversation we started having last month, which I think is really good, is how do we reach the people that are not yet involved? And I think, talking about, I mean, what I think Mika said last time is right. The large number of people who are moving out of town or who might soon, who have, for people for whom affordable housing is not an abstraction, right? It's a matter of, am I going to be able to stay in my home and in my home community, or am I not? And people who have come in more recently, and new demographics, and school-age children, and firefighters, how are we going to reach those people and invite them in? And one thing, and Jamie, I'm now thinking about what you were saying, and so I want to hand this to you in a second. It seems like, unless I'm mistaken, and please definitely tell me that I am. Tell me if I am. That the route that we had been taking about, let's get people together and have a conversation about what you want and care about in terms of housing. It didn't seem, I've asked several times, like, okay, are there more places we can do that? Are there more are more groups and community organizations that we identify that we can sit down with? And it seems like that was not necessarily the most useful area to pursue. But what we started talking about last time, Jamie and Mary, a little bit, is can we approach this more obliquely to bring those people in who don't sort of lead from their opinions about housing? Maybe they never even thought about housing before. They've certainly thought about, whether they can stay in town or not, but they're not necessarily, they don't have a position on the issue of housing. They haven't thought about it a lot. Like, I'll never forget people I work with in the Naugatuck Valley talking with a guy who said, "Oh, I don't have a problem with housing," and then 5 minutes later saying he can barely afford his rent. Right, that a lot of people have not put this together from that their individual life circumstances are connected to a policy issue. And so if you say we want to have a conversation about housing, I think a lot of people will say that doesn't have to do with me, even though it does. And so this is where I think where we left it last month was an interest, as I think you put it, Mary, in having a regular meeting about our town. I think you called it Know Your Town. And getting people together to talk about what's going on in town, what they would like to see in town, what are challenges, what are opportunities, etc. And with the knowledge that housing connects to everything, and it's gonna be, it'll get to housing one way or the other, and it's not necessarily something that it needs to have the imprimatur of the Woodbridge Housing Committee on it, but that committee members are, of course, welcome and encouraged to participate in. Jamie and Mary, am I right that that's kind of where we left it last time?
Certainly one of the things that we were talking about was a regular forum.
Yeah, I just wonder, now we're going to be in this intense stakeholder engagement period while we're doing the plan of conservation and development. And I'm just wondering if there's a way we could kind of like cross-pollinate our efforts. Because that, and I think, Ben, I know your father was involved with this 10 years ago in Woodbridge, bringing people to talk about housing. Just a thought that perhaps we could just link both those efforts in, because they're similar. And
so I think that kind of engagement could be complementary with what we were talking about last time, because that kind of engagement, as I understanding, is government asking people, what do you think, right? That people are in the mode of kind of responding and sort of replying, whereas what Jamie is talking about and what he's part of All In for Milford and they've done effectively is putting residents in the role of building, of advocating for stuff, of taking more active part in not just one engagement session, but actually showing up regularly to public meetings, having more people involved at these meetings, at P&Z meetings, at other meetings in town, not there to sort of basically they're there to participate on an ongoing basis, not just to offer a statement and then go, or fill out a survey and then go. So I'm wondering if these things that we're talking about are different and also complementary.
Perhaps. I just want to be cognizant that we should be coordinating our efforts and not, be accused of working in isolation.
Or not working
Then
out.
would it be like, and I address this to the whole body, how about if we have like a initial meeting of folks, Mary and Elaine, anyone else who might want to explore how we open up these conversations, working, I think last time we talked about how if you drill into some of, what we did in Milford is we got other nonprofits, churches and et cetera involved, and then their outreach committee people goes, yeah, I want to be part of that conversation, and so we could have an initial meeting where we brainstorm, like, Ben, you and I would call it a power map, but to be like, just sort of speak plain English, we identify the various organizations where we want to reach out to and try to attract more participation, especially organizations that might have some of these young couples with kids, etc. And then really start to move towards having an initial community gathering, and maybe that one, and again, not burden the housing committee with putting it on, but have a, participation by members of the housing committee and myself and whomever. We'll have a dinner and we'll figure out some activities to really spur participation. Does that sound like a plan, or?
Looks like you have something to say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not sure. I do have something to say, but I'm not sure what it is. I'm just concerned that we've had so many different public meetings and so many different things, and the more we do this, the less we get done. And I think the time has come when we have to start to move forward,
Yes, I
at least
agree.
so I could see it in my lifetime.
I'm just wondering if we could get another, I'm thinking maybe human services, get somebody to take this on, because I think it's important. But I think in terms of the housing committee, we have to really start, the act of actually getting the housing, the infrastructure in place to get the housing done. And I think the conversation needs to happen as well simultaneously, but I'm wondering if we could get another body to help us with this. I wonder if it's more of a human services. That's why I was hoping to have a conversation with Tim Austin's wife, who's now, is she, I think, chairing the Human Services Commission. Yeah, and so if we could talk to her about that, I would think that would be a great way of just, again, working and coordinating together. Because
Let me jump in if I could. So, Kathy, I totally agree that this is not something that the housing committee needs to or even necessarily should lead. What I heard Jamie saying is that he could work, that this thing, it could be led actually by some of these churches and community organizations. And if Human Services wants to be a part of it, that would be terrific.
Yeah, we haven't really, besides Temple Emmanuel, we really haven't been able to engage our faith-based organizations too much. So I think that's been
Well, yeah, I reached out to B'nai Jacob early on, and that went nowhere
right.
fast.
Right.
Yep.
I don't know what other churches, have we reached out to some of the?
So the list we made, at the last meeting, because I agree, I think that's true. Temple Emmanuel is great. I think we could include them. We talked about the library, the Historical Society, Massaro Farm, Mika's wife, Pat, was a realtor, apropos our previous conversation. Sandy, who Mary was going to get in touch with, Rotary, and Human Services.
Yeah, that was, we were just speaking of that. Sandy Stein was the
Right.
person to whom I was supposed to communicate.
And so I think what Jamie was suggesting is, and Jamie and I talked about this yesterday, so we're, I think, pretty well in sync, but tell me if I get anything wrong, is because this is, this is not something that the housing committee is going to run, let's have a separate meeting with anybody that's interested in this, which everybody here is welcome to, and invite some of these other groups into it. Because I think it's one thing to say, we have an agenda, we want you to talk about housing, and another to say, we want to get together and talk about and work on whatever matters to you, whatever matters to the people in your congregation who use your library, who are in your Rotary Club, who use human services, because again, it all connects to housing, but I think a lot of people are resistant to first start talking about housing because they don't really see how it connects.
What we found in Milford, and I know Woodbridge is certainly a bit more affluent, but, housing costs impact how much people can spend on food and other things. And so food insecurity, the cost of daycare, the cost of diapers, we're coming up in these conversations. And so while it's outside of housing, there's a significant housing piece to it, and getting more affordable housing options or better housing options. Sometimes take that word affordable out because people think of projects, etc. But talking about more housing options that are within people's financial means, so they're not spending more than 30% of their income on mortgage or whatever, rent, that helps solve other significant challenges that families are having, especially families with kids that are in daycare. I mean, I had no idea that daycare is more than the cost of a mortgage. It's like $2,000 a month. So these conversations will have a housing component, but they really open up, as Ben was saying, what are your concerns about, what challenges are you facing as a firefighter, workforce housing in Woodbridge, or as a teacher, etc., and as a parent with 3 small kids, 2 in daycare, whatever, but also we're creating something that they can own and feel like they're driving instead of a government agency driving the conversation. Does that sound right, Ben? Am I articulating that right?
Yes.
Yeah, and and then, I mean, we were attending planning and zoning committees in Zoom over the COVID pandemic, and when the ADU regulations needed to be rewritten, they called us because they knew we were concerned. And so we have then members of All In Milford have naturally, just through attrition, become members of planning and zoning, members of the Board of Alders, members of the Board of Education. And so effectively then, people who are having these non-political, productive conversations about making the town we love even better, they wind up having a seat at the table and helping to bring those ideas to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, it all sounds good. I guess my question is, where do we start? I mean, so my thought, that's why I thought maybe, because the way I would operationalize it is to find an agency or somebody outside of the housing committee that would really champion this. because it's all.
Yes, I think that's right.
I think it's all good, and that's why I'm kind of hoping that it could be the Human Services Committee, because I think they're the most, aligned group that cares about what goes on with people and low-income people and families and seniors. So they would be a good epicenter for these conversations, and would be a natural alliance. I don't know, I'm not familiar, well, Elaine, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I was on the Human Services Commission for
Right.
17 years, and we did tackle lots of these kinds of
Right.
issues, and so I think that's a good place
So
to start.
That's what I suggested, we start and see where it
Yeah.
goes, and then it could grow from there, because then it's like a natural, and then you have like a captive audience, because you do have like the seniors there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but I think, Ben, what you're hearing from this committee is the frustration of not seeing steps to really make this happen. I'm assuming the goal of these Know Your Town, or the kinds of meetings you're talking about, is what we hope to achieve with the community conversations, right? Just educating people, yeah. So it's always a good idea. I don't know. I think the Human Services Commission is the place to start, actually, and see if they would be interested.
Okay.
And Elaine, just to say, you're absolutely right. The goal is the same as in the community conversations we've had, and I think we ran up against a limit, how much we were able to achieve doing it the way we were doing it.
Yeah.
And so now we're thinking, is there another way? Can we take a different road to the same solution, that get to the same outcome, the same end, that might get us past some of the roadblocks that we encountered beforehand, specifically the roadblock of who wants to come out and have a quote-unquote conversation about housing.
Yeah.
And who is turned off by that, who on an institutional level is made nervous by it. And I'm thinking about Massaro Farm, who I would bet they're the other ones who I would immediately suggest bringing into this conversation. But in addition to Human Services, they're very interested in this kind of community-facing work. And the reason they didn't get further involved before was because they had board members that were afraid of doing something that would be quote-unquote political.
Yeah, I think that's one of our big problems here in Woodbridge, the fact that when we say housing and development, and some people can't resist saying those in the same sentence all the time, and not seeing that it's not just a question of big development or Section 8 or the kinds of negative connotations that many people unfortunately still bring to the discussion. The difficulty here is that because of the political environment and because of the hot button issue of the Country Club of Woodbridge, and also, of course, the fact that the town is being sued for related issues, you can't have a nice neutral introduction without expecting that people are going to hear it with those shades added to the picture. And if we could get Human Services to be our front man, it would be a different picture altogether. It would be not housing by itself, or development, or affordable, or any of those things that seem to be trigger words, but it would be people. People, our town, what's best for the people in our town. It would be a very effective instance image for people to have, and then we could have a much more productive introduction of what we've been talking about in terms of housing, improving our town.
I think that's right on, Mary. And it's starting with the people, and the people talking about what they want to talk about in the language that it makes sense for them to talk about it. And So what I'm thinking, and Jamie, you were saying before about getting a separate meeting together to plan this. I think that's right, and I'm thinking, I'm wondering, we could do a first meeting just with Kathy Austin if she's the right person to do, as well as Tim. Then I want to think about a next meeting that has a few more of these people in it that we talked about: realtors, firefighters, Rotary, Massaro Farm, etc. Because the organizations in town where people are gathering on their own terms.
Yeah, and I think I'll just weigh in too, that when we started working with you in Milford, there was no agenda. It was, let's bring the members of the community together and organize or talk, have conversations, and then out of those conversations came, there's not enough affordable housing, we're having a crisis. I mean, we were in COVID, the homeless rate was skyrocketing, unemployment, etc. But the people who came together said, well, housing is important and food is important, and I'm passionate about, helping the local food pantries, etc. And so the people brought their concerns to the conversation, and out of that, we call them buckets, but they're teams or subcommittees formed to concentrate on those specific things. And I think, human services where, I'm not familiar with Woodbridge Human Services, but that's where, I think we're dealing with people that are having challenges and need help.
Right, so why don't we start with that?
Let me actually just ask you all right now, I guess Jamie, Kathy, Mary, Elaine, I realize I am wide open next Thursday, the 11th, between noon and 2:30.
We were just talking about that meeting. When is that meeting on the 11th?
Oh, there was,
Oh,
What
that was the
time?
meeting you were
What time's
talking
that?
about.
Yeah.
What,
What,
Desegregate the ADUs.
do you remember the
Do you
time
know
do you know
of
the
day?
time that was?
Yeah, it was 7 at night.
oh, it's at
Oh,
night,
okay.
And this is a meeting to just discuss
This
more
would
of
be a
what we're
meeting, and we would
discussing.
invite Tim and Kathy in.
Oh.
And depending on, my gut always says the more the merrier. So, do we invite Katie Poole from Massaro and a couple others in too?
Well, Katie
if
Poole's
you'd
not
rather start,
at Massaro's,
not officially, but she's still got a lot of connections there.
okay.
What time?
Or, right, my gut would say invite a few more, but if you would want to start smaller just with Tim and Kathy, then we could do that and then plan a follow-up.
So January 11th, what time did you say?
I'm open between noon and 2:30
In person or virtual?
in person.
In person, oh, how special. Okay, let me talk to, I could reach out to Tim, I know, cause we were just gonna reach out to him first, but if we could get Tim and Kathy there at the same time, that would be good, and,
Totally.
if not, we could, maybe even get Steve, from Mazzaro Farms.
Yeah, for sure.
When Mito was here at the last meeting, he also raised the concern or desire to get the newer residents, the younger couples with kids more involved. And
Yes.
so I don't know if there's a liaison in his office who would want to be part, or if we have that as the second conversation after the initial team
Yeah,
does
I
a
mean-
little brainstorming.
I think we start with this, because
Okay.
because human services, I think, hopefully would have
Yeah.
some
I'm
thoughts.
just less familiar with who's.
Yeah,
who,
because
so-
I think we're still, I think I think the town's still in transition. They just started Tuesday.
Yep,
So I think we gotta give him some time to
yeah.
get.
I think he's gonna be excited about this though, based on what he shared with us last month.
Yeah, no, I think he is excited. I mean, we just have so much potential to do to just kind of change just change the whole image of Woodbridge. You know, it's kind of like almost having a clean slate that we could just kind of advance these different initiatives together and show that we're working together and making things happening. Would be cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, all right, so that sounds like a plan. I will reach out to Tim and, now, did you ever meet Kathy Austin, Ben, or did you just hear about Kathy?
I haven't met either of them. I got connected with them through David Kennedy.
David Kennedy, okay, all right. Okay, let me see what I can do. All right,
Awesome.
are we good with community conversations? Do we have?
I think so, unless anybody's got any leads and updates about other groups that want to be involved. I wonder, Lou, if it might not be too soon to start putting a bug in Rabbi Farbman's ear about this idea that we've been talking about.
Good luck, Lou.
No, he's a little preoccupied.
He's
Yeah.
busy.
With things,
I know.
but no,
Yeah.
No, I know, he's,
Not good timing.
No, I mean, I'm still, I
mean,
think
not-
about
not-
the time we got together and 3 days later, it's so surreal.
yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it's
you know,
also
this is
some
a
family
conversation
issues
we
too.
can have
His,
later, but I mean,
his
I'm,
father-in-law's
of
very
course,
sick in Philadelphia. He's
very aware of the sort of
I don't know. He's gonna last. for a while.
feelings and divides in the Jewish community over what's going on in Israel and Gaza.
It's not just
It would not surprise me if the Jewish community might be looking for an issue, something closer to home they can work on more of a unified way. Don't know if that's true, but
That's a good
that's what I
point.
wonder.
You know, it may be a good idea because he respects you a lot, Ben. And it may be
And
good
maybe,
if
Lou,
you
maybe
approach
like the three of us could have
Yeah.
lunch sometime and just
Yep.
talk about it
That would be
informally,
fine.
and then if he thinks it's a terrible idea, we'll just leave it.
That sounds fine.
Cool. I respect him a lot too, to be clear. I really think he does great work.
Thank you.
He does.
Okay,
That's his fault.
well,
Yeah,
next,
I'm good. Thanks, Kathy.
all right, great. Are you signing off, or are you still on?
I was reminded of that.
Oh, I'll hang out with you.
One
Okay.
got a big head.
All right, the next item on the agenda is next steps in creating affordable housing. We kind of talked about
Kind of.
this a little bit, but I just want to kind of reiterate what we did talk about, particularly in terms of the communication piece, that we should get something in the Woodbridge Town News about what we could do in Woodbridge in terms of zoning for between ADUs and the 2-unit housing and multi-family unit housing.
Do some of the commissions have, like, weekly or monthly, something that they print every month or every week even? No?
Maybe Human Services, I think they have a list of their
I
things,
thought we
right?
used to.
Yeah, because
I-
they have, they might, because they have
Yeah.
a lot of outreach and programs that they need to communicate to people. If we had outreach and programs that we were communicating as has been suggested, then that would be the kind of thing that we would really want to have in Woodbridge Town News.
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, we did have a little article in Woodbridge Town News about the training that we were doing on affordable housing for housing policy, and I thought people were gonna like really show up for that
That was JCC.
at the JCC.
I did show up. 30 other
You
people
did,
showed up.
yeah, you did show
Yeah.
up.
I did show up.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I thought there would be, I guess I thought there'd be more, because there's people that,
Well, if you
Had to show up.
cross if you go to sustainability, they put an article in the newspaper, and they gave a list of what they were talking about upcoming events.
yeah, they did have,
That crosses with housing.
yes.
What does sustainability have to do with housing? You get the people from sustainability who are doing Saturday webinars or whatever they're doing at the library to give out little programs or little printouts of what the housing is doing, or No Connecticut. That you cross in the, if you cross in the meetings, you might get people
Yeah.
from all around deciding, we gotta pull this together.
Who is the chair of the sustainability?
Hillary.
Hillary? Okay.
Don't remember the last name. And they just started publishing, and it's a good thing to publish.
Okay, I think that's a very good suggestion. I will, because she would, I mean, sustainability was on my list to reach out to, but the idea of cross-pollination is very, very good.
Can I ask a related question? Because I wasn't sure what they were talking about because I don't read Facebook. What were either Amy or Kathy talking about that we were
Somebody,
posting on Facebook?
one of us posted
I'm-
something on Facebook that was outdated.
I'm not sure what that was.
I have no idea.
Well, there's only 6 of us.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think, I didn't hear the
None of
Facebook
us
part.
know
I thought
this
she was
was-
talking about the affordable housing plan needing to be updated with more current data.
But she talked about something in
something on
Facebook recently
Facebook
that
that-
had the
No,
same
she-
old information.
Yeah, she said that
I'm
someone
not
had
sure what
posted
that was.
something on
Well,
Facebook that had out-of-date
well,
information or
Is
incorrect
it in the
information.
report that we can read?
Yeah, I'll have to look it up.
See what it says.
I don't know what
Fairly
Facebook, I don't know what comments they're talking about. I don't think,
Facebook, not everybody goes on Facebook.
Or
No,
Woodbridge Watch.
I don't.
Yeah. yeah, I don't know.
I tried
Well,
to avoid-
there's
yeah,
a
well, we
lot
should-
of
we should all look
misinformation
at that.
floating around,
We
and
should
you
all
know.
Well,
it.
yeah, I mean,
And
there's
we
some,
can't-
you
You know,
yeah.
the question is, do we want to be in the business of trying to inform everyone about the very complicated subject of how you get affordable housing in any community, much less ours? It's, as you know, very complex.
It is complex, but
And-
I think just by letting people know some optionalities, the fact that they could build an ADU on
Oh,
their
yeah.
property
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you
I think
cut
that
through a
makes
lot of
sense.
it and have a message, I think that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we really need to do. We need to decide a message, 2 messages, 3 messages, and really focus on those things.
yeah. I think we just get the basic messages
is
out.
This is who we are and this is what we're doing, and we're not.
Mm-hmm.
But
so-
I also, I keep thinking, maybe it's the educator in me, I keep thinking that it's valid for us to take these questions and to give answers to them. Now, maybe politically, it's not, I don't mean politically, I mean, maybe just to keep things simple. It's not a good idea to invite complicated questions, especially from people who are not going to actually pay attention to the answers.
Yeah,
I know I would have a terrible challenge trying to make some of this material sufficiently clear that it could be accessible in a reasonable way. But that's what people need. They need a chance to ask their questions and to get answers. And the community conversations is not set up to do that, but when we held them, we did have the opportunity to answer some of those questions and to address some of those concerns directly. And I thought that was one of the, and of course the presentations, public presentations that we've had in the training is designed to do that. The question is just, how do you make more people aware? Because it's so easy for people to read, to talk about things, and express just their fears or their concerns or their lack of understanding, and then have that, be something that we have to deal with in a practical way. You don't want to do that. Sustainability doesn't have that problem. Conservation doesn't have that problem. Human services doesn't have that problem. We have baggage that we have to deal with. I do think that putting things in the paper is good. Foot forward is going to be good however we do it.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about when we said maybe have some forums or some speeches or something at the library and just invite people to come, because then if they have questions, they can come and ask those questions.
Is our
Whatever that
charge to educators are charged to make recommendations
Our
to
charge
those
is
who will have those who will be making the decisions.
Well, I mean, if you look at our
I
plan,
think
I
it's
mean,
both.
our charge is to make recommendations to the Board of Selectmen and to educate. I mean, if you look at our new charge, yeah, it's to educate the public. And if you read our affordable housing plan, that's the first strategy, is to educate our residents. So, yeah,
Especially-
education, and I mean, and that's why the community conversations are so important, because that's the means
Right. But
to educate.
But going back to Kathy and Amy again, you know, they were commenting on our original report. Well, that report's already been approved by the Board of Selectmen. It's not appropriate for us to go and change it. It's not our report. The report already was sent. We'll be issuing another report at some point, and there'll be public comment on it. And,
Yeah, I think,
You know,
Amy, I
you
mean.
know, we're not
there-
gonna go back in time, though. We can't go back.
No, but most of the recommendations are in the report. I mean, they did talk about, they had like 3 recommendations, you know, to look at the downtown area in terms of, you know, changing these zoning regulations to allow mixed use. Yeah. we will
Wasn't
work-
that included in our,
Yes,
Yes.
that was
Yes.
included, so yeah, definitely. You know, talking about the, what else, what was the
A
other?
focus on state-owned land, for
The
example, that
state-owned
was
land,
one.
we were looking at state, but, you know, we looked at that early on. I'm pretty sure, Chris Sullivan said, "No way, Jose." If I remember correctly, we brought up a bunch of state property, we pulled the whole list, and she said there wasn't any state, not to say that she is 100% correct in her analysis, but, you know, I'm happy they did bring this up, because we should revisit that.
Take a second look and, you know, and
No,
if
so-
the response is that here's why it doesn't work, that's fine. And if the
Yeah,
response is
no,
maybe
definitely.
we missed something, you know.
I think that's.
That's okay, too.
That's a very good, recommendation. So the infill development business district, I mean, we talked about the, lenders building, to repurpose that office building. So if that's something, but again, you need somebody, we housing committee members can't like go and negotiate with the owner of the building
Yeah.
to, you know, you actually need like somebody who does this,
like a planner?
like a planner, you know, that has planning capacity, that knows how to go in to talk to people to do this, but, it's not like we have not thought about doing this.
Speaking of excellent partners, Kathy's one on the board of the Woodbridge Land Trust. If the Woodbridge Land Trust, together with the Conservation Commission, could partner with us visibly, I think it would help both organizations.
Yeah, I mean, there's model, I should also send that webinar to her. Because she did attend that, session in last February.
Yeah.
So,
went to
she might be interested in that. You know, all we could do is just keep on, at least they came up with, you know, recommendations, and we kind of, commented their last report that they didn't come up with recommendations, so at least they came up with recommendations.
Yeah, awesome.
That I don't disagree with, so that's.
No, that's very helpful.
One of the other things I think she mentioned was that, you know, we were sort of overly focused on new construction, and that we ought to be, you know, and then that, you know, morphed into a discussion of, you know, a tax advantage, you know, conferring tax advantages, which, that's nice, but where's that coming from?
Yeah, the tax advantage, I could tell you, we are not supporting that. The incentive program for qualified elderly, all that does is artificially provide, numbers for affordable units that we have, when we don't actually have it, because what happens is, they put a lien on the house to say it's affordable, and then someone comes in, buys the lien out, and then it no longer becomes affordable, so it's.
Couldn't agree
Yes.
with you more. I figured that out too. But I
Yeah.
mean, just, you know, but you know, if you come in and say that, then you have to be able to explain why that doesn't
That's
work.
what I'm
Yeah.
saying. People need to have answers to
Yeah,
their
it
questions.
doesn't,
You know, I think
doesn't work. But the better solution, which I hear a lot of seniors want, is to have communities where they could live in, see, you know, housing, that would be, you know, like the Fieldstone type of housing in Orange, that they all are moving to.
Smaller.
You know, a little smaller.
Smaller, some
more
amenities.
condensed, so they have, you know,
Yeah,
a community feel, that's what
No,
what
I
they
think,
want.
I think that's right. I'm not so sure that they, you know, people who are advanced age really want to live in, you know, 2 and 3 floor buildings. I mean, you know, they don't want to be going up and down stairs.
Well, no, as long
That's
as I
why they
have,
wanna move away from home.
Don't kid yourself. Nobody wants to go down the hard and the fast way, you know?
or you can have, buildings with elevators. I mean, there's,
Right. Then, you
there's
know,
ways,
then it gets expensive.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so with that, so those are the couple steps that we're gonna do. Was there any other steps we should be pursuing?
Just in terms of thinking ahead into 2024, do we have any plans, or should we
2024 again?
revise our housing plan in any way? We had mentioned last time a couple of observations that we've made, that they've made, that would be
Yeah, you know,
changes that would be
I
to
think
its
we could.
advantage.
Well, we're gonna be incorporating our plan into, or at least a semblance of our plan into the plan of conservation and development. I think that's a time to do that, because there's just, you know, a lot of the information now is probably gonna have to be, you know, the plan of conservation and development is probably gonna have to rerun a lot of the demographics and statistics and things anyways, so some of that data is gonna have to drop off. So yeah, I think we could probably have a more condensed version of our plan that gets incorporated. We have to think of how that looks. I mean, so this committee is gonna be an important part of that planning process. So I think we need to look at how we wanna see our plan incorporated into that. So I think at that point, that's where you're probably gonna see more condensed versions, more, you know, we did adopt some of the recommendations that that Amy and Kathy provided from the first report, talking about like just clarifying the 10% in terms of what that means in terms of the requirement for affordable housing, that's related to the 8-30G statute. There was a couple things that, you know, if they wanted us to clarify, which we could clarify. I mean, again, the overarching statistic that really is driving that plan is the fact that we only have 1% affordable housing. So maybe some of the other statistics are maybe a little off, but it's all about the 1% affordable housing.
Yeah.
So with that, is there any other steps we're talking about?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm gonna reach out to maybe Bettina, because I have talked to her on a couple occasions about having a little article or something we can put in there. So maybe we could draft. I don't know, Mary's. Do you want to take a first stab drafting? Let me take a first stab. You want to?
Well, we have to decide what we're gonna put in it.
I think we want to talk about. I think we want to keep it simple, like, you know, for promoting affordable housing. Did you know that in 2021 the Planning and Zoning Commission, as a decision to modify to approve the application of Open Communities Alliance, came up with these, you know, changes in the zoning amendments.
That's, you know, that's really a good newspaper article, that subject by itself, but I don't know if we could get what we really need, which is the identification of somebody who's doing it, so that we could interview them and talk about their reasons for how they knew about it and how they were, you know, what their goals were in building the unit. I think one is being built in my neighborhood, but I'm not sure.
Oh, to make it like somebody.
I don't know whether Christine could give us.
I went to Christine and I said, can you give me a list of, you know, the permits
permits?
for, and
Yeah.
she said, no, we don't sort it that. I'm like, come on, you could just
come
look at
on.
them. I know. But she,
you know, you could do both of what, you know, what you, Mary, raised, and what, you know, you did the little blurbs, you know, did you know, and then just, you know,
Yeah.
a paragraph on, hey, there's ADUs available, and that can increase the you know,
Yeah.
you might catch some people's attention doing something very simple like that, and then, you know, you might have something more augmented that had experiential things, or people who know what they're doing and said, this is, you know, but we could do that,
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, they're really,
Join our email list to get notification every month.
Yeah,
well, that's a,
This is our email address.
that's a good idea, that's right.
well,
We could, and I mean, even if it was just a tiny, you know, actually, believe it or not, the smaller it is, in some ways, it stands out better.
yeah, true.
You know,
But I think the ADU topic is a really good one because, if only because, other people in other neighborhoods besides mine are observing these kinds of constructions taking place and probably wondering what the heck's going on.
And I think because they're naturally affordable, they don't require a deed restriction, and therefore they're part of the affordable housing pool, I believe.
Well, no, they're not part of they don't count towards the
They
10%.
don't
They don't, okay.
no, but even so.
Yeah, I know, but that's not our charge is not only to get to the 10%. Our charge is to create more
Agreed.
housing opportunity.
Agreed.
Well, it's, you know, it's a continuum, but I think it's good. That's because any housing relieves the shortage of housing.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Do we know how many applications there have been for?
She says she doesn't know. I'm sure there's a way of finding out.
I would
but-
think. Okay.
Yeah. Is it more than 5? Is
Well,
it
that's
more
like,
than 10?
do you have
Is
an
it
idea?
less than 20?
Can you
We're gonna
give
play
it-
this game?
Can you give me an order of magnitude? You know, you know, maybe someone, maybe you can talk to her.
Who would I be asking?
Ask Chris. I don't know. Sometimes
Oh, okay, okay.
maybe I don't ask the right way.
Okay.
I don't know what my neighbors would think if I showed up on their front porch and said, you don't know me, but I'd like to find out what you're up to here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Don't do that in Texas.
I'm gonna try to make this
I'll do that in a lot of places.
a 2-hour meeting.
All right.
So we did add one extra little thing on the agenda, and that's approving the
Schedule?
schedule. So, the only thing I saw in terms of the first Wednesday of the month was, the first Wednesday in October was the start of Rosh Hashanah, so I didn't think you'd
Hold
be
on a
able
second.
to meet.
Yeah, they must have
Then-
said they voted to amend it, that's
Yes,
why
you-
you and I were voting on that.
October 9th.
2024.
So it's
Is
October
that,
9th.
is that the first night?
Okay.
Yeah, so it was in
That'll work.
between.
It's Erev Rosh Hashanah.
That's why I said just include it as.
What, Ben?
Yeah, we're okay. The 9th is okay. I mean,
It's Erev, so it'll be part of the holiday, yeah.
yeah, but the 9th will work. It's the second won't.
Yeah. So, it probably won't be here because that's the day of the Board of Select meeting and they sometimes go to 7, so we might have to go to the other conference room back there, so.
Okay.
All right, so if everything else looks okay in terms of dates?
Wait, so it's gonna be the second Wednesday in October?
Correct.
Yeah, everything,
thank you.
everything else is the first Wednesday except for October where it would be the
Great,
second
thanks.
Wednesday.
As opposed to the first Monday in
Right.
October.
So our next meeting will be February 7th. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve and adopt the Housing Committee meeting schedule for 2024. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? I'm getting there.
Aye.
See, Mary and I were just discussing, that's what we thought you were
That's
saying
what
we
I thought you
voted
were
on
doing
already.
for.
We voted on the amending, we were thinking you were saying we voted on this, and I said, I don't remember that.
Oh, no.
No, but that's okay. It's all
We had a vote on
clarified
the
now.
amendment. Okay, all right.
The joy of Robert's.
We need to go, we need to have training on Robert's rules.
Yeah, I
as well
should,
as
I know,
everything.
that was gonna be a Christmas present to give me a book. So I gotta tell you, I never read it. All right, so a motion to adjourn. Is there anything else? I should ask if there's anything
I
else.
think,
No,
I think we're good.
Could I dial into I'm gonna be in in Hilton Head on the
Nice.
7th. I'm gonna
Watch
get
out,
in-
curb-
I'm gonna get
curb
injured
stops.
again someplace. I'll walk into something. I know.
No, Lou,
Some walking clinic somewhere.
I've gotten healthy enough
Just
to get
remember to
injured
pick
again.
up your
Lou,
feet.
Lou, please.
So could I dial in or
Yeah.
on the phone like much like Ben did?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can do that. All right. Yep, we're good.
Okay, do I have to do that second?
All right, motion to adjourn.
Kathy,
second.
Jim. Oh, come on, Jim seconded everything.
I'll second.
Oh, all right.
Second. All in favor?